Drive on the 610 loop near the Galleria or on the Southwest Freeway near downtown, and you'll see huge billboards raised high in the sky. Take a close look at what they say. It's a simple message, really. Bad electrical work can start a fire. You'll see these signs all over town. Now meet the guy who paid to put them up.
I wanted to get a message out that there's a lot that's going on behind the walls, in my opinion, that people are not aware of and could come back and either burn down their homes or even kill them.
After Hurricane Harvey, so many Houstonians have had to rebuild. Now their trouble with contractors are making headlines once again. Scott Van Dyke invested an awful lot of money into his piece of Houston history, the M.D. Anderson House. It sits in the heart of the Museum District, the original family home of the famed Houston philanthropist. Now it's the place Scott Van Dyke calls home.
I love Houston. I'm a native Houstonian. My parents moved to Houston when I was a year old. I've always lived in Houston. I love Houston, and I love the history of Houston, and I want to preserve the history of Houston.
But time has taken its toll on the nearly century-old M.D. Anderson House. Van Dyke hired contractors to do more than $1 million worth of new work to preserve and protect this piece of Houston history. And much of the work was done in the months after another horrible hurricane. A storm called Ike. It's that work that's now triggered an ugly legal fight with big-time implications for all Houston homeowners. And it's the reason for those big billboards, because Van Dyke does have the money to warn other Houstonians.
It's not a question of if, it's only a question of time on when your house is going to have an electrical fire and you're going to have a major fire at your home.
Electrical experts hired by Van Dyke told him the work that had been done was a disaster waiting to happen. Overstuffed electrical conduits throughout the entire house. This huge electrical box that was turned on by the contractors even when it wasn't grounded and safe to turn on. And when it rains, the water pours out of these high voltage boxes in Van Dyke's basement. Boy, that looks safe. This one gray box had enough juice going through it to power 4 or 5 regular-sized homes.
Which meant that if one little wire had touched the edge of that box, okay, any man or woman or child that had touched that box would have been killed instantly.
The work was considered dangerous by city inspectors. They ticketed the electrical work for violations of the city electrical code, and they told Van Dyke to get it redone. The company that did the work in the first place said it wasn't bad, it just wasn't finished. But here's the wrinkle in this case. Van Dyke says he didn't find out about how much danger he could be in until after a lawsuit was filed against him. That's right, the general contractor sued Van Dyke first for refusing to pay all his bills. Van Dyke says the job was costing him hundreds of thousands of dollars more than he was promised it would cost. And then he started seeing the problems with the work.
I paid the contractor over $500,000 to do the electrical in my house, and the cost of doing all the restorative work is about $200,000.
You would think it should have been a slam dunk case. If the electrical work was really shoddy, then Van Dyke should have won, right? But he didn't. The general contractor did. And the juror said afterwards that they didn't focus on the work, just on whether or not Van Dyke owed the contractor money, even if the work was bad. Famed lawyer Rusty Hardin, he had defended the contractor.
He hired a very famous attorney here in town who has a lot of charisma, and I believe that that attorney was successful in swaying the jury.
And the contractor's insurance company paid a lot of money to get some big-time help in the case from Houston City Hall. Electrical contractor Robert Jones was a paid expert fighting Van Dyke's claim of shoddy work. He was paid over $25 grand in just this one case. But wait a minute. Isn't Jones the guy who also works for Houston taxpayers, a member of the city electrical board? They're the government watchdogs at City Hall that decide who has a legitimate complaint about shoddy work and who doesn't. Boy, that sure sounds like a conflict. We checked. The city of Houston has no record showing Jones ever bothered to tell them he was a hired gun. They should.
If a person is on the Houston Electric Board, They should not be allowed to be a paid expert in an electrical lawsuit, because the very reason why that contractor is hiring him is because of his influence.
And it raises a good issue. If the electrical work was shoddy, why should Van Dyke, or any other homeowner for that matter, have to pay for the work anyway? Will higher courts decide for homeowners, or with the folks who did the questionable work? After Hurricane Harvey, people can't be too careful. They have to trust the contractors hired to do the repairs. They also have to trust insurance companies will do the right thing too. And Van Dyke simply wants to warn Houstonians with the billboards. Harris County has more fires than any other county in Texas, and fire department records tell us that 1/3 of all the fires in our city are caused by electrical problems. This is clearly bigger than one man's fight about a contractor's work. It could be a matter of life and death.